Nobody's. Oh, Mitch is here.
Either laws are gonna change,
Sure.
kids are they're not gonna be able to walk back from this stuff. And that's the sad part. It's like you make a real stupid decision at 17, 18,
Sure.
and then boom, that affects next week. Awesome. Yeah. You came in with it. I smiled at you, broke the ice, and then
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Welcome. Thank you to those attending in person and those staying engaged by watching our recording at a later time. The public is reminded that if they wish to speak during community comment, they will need to fill out a speaker form located in the lobby on the table and turn it in to Board Secretary Kim Coben, seated at the end of the table to my left. Comments will take place during the designated community comment portion of our agenda. Before we dive into tonight's agenda, I want to take a moment and introduce those seated at the table with me. To my right, we have Superintendent Degner, Directors Pilcher Hyatt, Eastham, Vice President Williams. To my left, we have Directors Abraham, Clausen, Finch, and Board Secretary Coven. With that, we will move to our first agenda item, which is the first time we get to hear from our student reps. Yay! First up, City High, we have Lulu and Rose. If you want to step forward.
Yes, does this work? Yes, it does. It's so exciting. All right, so my name's Lulu.
And I'm Rose.
And we're the senior student body presidents at City High School. So we're off to a really good start this year. We have our homecoming dance and homecoming parade. Homecoming dance is, as usual, going to be great. Our homecoming parade is our big pride because we get the whole east side closed down, and all the clubs have a float, and all the kids get the candy. I mean, I grew up going to it, and then there's chili afterwards, and then we have our powder puff game. So we're very excited to be organizing that. So that's next week. Rose?
We also started the Adopt or Donate a Yearbook initiative, which has started off really well. It's basically just us fundraising for kids who are on free and reduced lunch to get a free yearbook at the end of their senior year.
We noticed that seniors were struggling to, yearbooks can go up to $50 at City High, and that can be a difficult thing for seniors. Those seniors want a yearbook, it can be difficult to get one. So we just started on My School Bucks, you can see a place to donate a yearbook. And it's we're very excited about this initiative. It's been very popular. We have 150 kids on free and reduced lunch this year, so $6,000 would be an estimate. And we've raised around, I think, 800 so far, so we're very excited. Also, we have our fall play. We are doing at City High a fall play that is never been done in Iowa before, so it's very exciting. It's called Baguettes, The Fall of a High School Ronin, and it is a coming-of-age high school tale, and we're very, very excited to do it. It's going to have a lot of technical aspects that we're excited. We got a new projector. We won a Creative and Technical Achievement Award last year, so we're just really excited to show off all our cool lights and our cool sets.
Our concert band was also chosen to perform at a state school board conference. So
We're very excited.
out of lots of bands.
Yes. Every band, guys, we were chosen. Anyway. So we just had our club fair and back to school night, which is very exciting. That's when we give all the parents an opportunity to come into the school, and then we also give students an opportunity to join clubs. City High has so many new clubs this year, and it's really fun because, they get very niche, right? So we got our bike riding club this year. We got robot fighting club, which is very exciting. We have math club, which started this year. And your turn.
Okay, the girls cross country also won the Hillcrest Academy Invitational. And I don't know, more sports news is that we finally won a football game.
Yay!
So yay! Losing streak is over.
Rose.
Yeah.
Mr. Bacon, we're sorry.
Yeah.
No, we won the little we won the little Cy-Hawk game, which is the important game to win. If there's any game we're gonna win, it's against Ames High, so we're very excited. And then volleyball also won their first home game versus Dubuque Hempstead, and you can finish.
Yeah, okay. And the last thing before we move on from a message from a student is that students at City High are concerned if the district has any plans in case COVID ramps up again.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's been a huge COVID outbreak at school. If you're familiar, you know, students are going home with symptoms, and COVID is definitely ramping up again. And so we've had some concerned students coming to us asking, you know, what is the plan if a COVID outbreak does happen? Will there be a masking thing? What is the plan, especially for winter? And then we have a message on behalf of a student, Esther Puterbaugh, who could not be here tonight but would like to share. My name is Esther Puterbaugh, and I am the leader of City High's initiative to provide students with free period products. At the end of last year, my fellow students and I were delighted to see the period product dispensers and restrooms at City High with the word free posted on them. Having these products directly in restrooms free of charge greatly improves students' quality of life while at school, and we are so thankful for the Board and District's assistance.
When we returned to school a few weeks ago, many of these dispensers were empty or low on products. To the best of my understanding, because these dispensers were a board pilot project last year, I wanted to make sure that the board knew that they were not full. Because this issue is so important for the well-being of our student body, I'm hoping to work with the board to figure out our ways to make sure these needs are met financially or otherwise.
Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks, guys.
Next up, we have Liberty High reps, Kai and Oriana.
Hello, my name's Oriana.
I'm Kai. Sorry for being a little late.
So first of all, hope everyone's having a great evening. So our marching band has started off at the football games, performing during halftime. Our drum majors are Victoria Akis, Connor Dollner, and Heath Lane. We've had great reviews. They're doing excellent. They start with Mars Space Odyssey, and then Rocket Man, and then Mars Enterprise Young Man, and then they'll do a song Levitating with the dance team. Our orchestra program is very excited to welcome our new teacher, Miss Kennedy, who has already made a great impact and brought them to Grant Elementary School to perform with the Philharmonic Orchestra. And then jazz choir, very cool. They were the only high school group invited to the Gen Conference, which will be held January 3rd through 6th in 2024 in New Orleans, and they are conducted by Rob Williams.
Also having to do with Liberty, 34 Liberty seniors were selected to the annual Hillsbank Salute program. The ceremony was held this past Sunday evening, and one of two $1,000 scholarships was awarded to one Liberty student, Ellie Hayer, who also won an all-expense-paid trip to participate in a national leadership conference later this year in St. Louis. And then for Liberty's homecoming, it's the week of September 25th, and we're all really looking forward to that with activities such as dress-up days, the Powder Puff football that we do every year, color run, the parade, the sporting events, and the dance. Also not on our script, but as I was walking in here, hearing the other group from the school speak, I know one of Liberty's goals this year was to work on attendance just because of how it's been affected with the pandemic this past year. It's already had a rough start with a lot of COVID outbreaks also at our school. I know personally within the band and choir program, which I'm a part of, it's really taken a big impact, which is kind of crucial since we're, working on our competition stuff already. So just kind of curious to see how we're going to keep how we're going to focus on that, working on attendance, but also, being safe health-wise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have the West High rep, Cindy.
Hi, my name is Cindy Wang. I am the student body president of the West Student Government at West High. So just a little update. This past week, West High took the #1 public school ranking. So shout out to our amazing teachers, staff, faculty, families, and students. I'm so honored to be representing West High. We're so proud. But more importantly, not a single high school ranked ahead of us had a more diverse student body nor higher free reduced lunch rate. So that was super exciting, and we're super proud of that. So some things we're looking forward to this September is the first ever homecoming parade on September 20th at West High. So this is going to be in our local neighborhood, and we're going to include lots of sports and different clubs, so that'll be super cool. And then we also have Trojan Games, which will include fun activities for the juniors and seniors, so that'll be exciting. And then we have the Pep Assembly on Friday. We'll also be we'll be including activities for our different clubs and sports. And then our homecoming dance is on Saturday, September 23rd, so we're super excited for that. As much as as scary as construction sounds, it's surprisingly been really smooth. We have construction in the front. We're doing some renovations at West High, and it has obstructed some walkways, but it's been no big deal. It's been good. People are adjusting, and it's awesome. It's good, and we're super excited about the renovations. Speaking about we also had the football game on Friday against Ankeny. And speaking of football, there's recently been a trophy called the Principal Bell. So that's super exciting. It was between Liberty and West, that game, and West got the trophy, the Principal Bell for that game. So that was super exciting. And then we also have a West versus City football game. So we're looking forward to that this Friday. Speaking of sports, our volleyball team is currently competing at Extreme Arena right now, so shout out to them. Girls and boys cross country will be this Thursday at Cedar Falls, so shout out to them too. And then our golf team just had a meet yesterday, so that was exciting. And then also swimming is having a home meet right now, and then they will also be having a meet this Saturday. The National Scholastic Press Association named the 2022-2023 West Side Story staff a newspaper/news magazine Pacemaker finalist on September 6th. So Pacemaker finalists will be recognized, and the Pacemaker winners are announced for the first time at the NSP Awards ceremony on November 4th at the Fall National High School Journalism Convention in Boston. So a fun fact is the West Side Story is the only school recognized in Iowa. So that is super exciting, and we're super proud of that. Speaking of our youth, we had the Youth Salute ceremony on Sunday, and we had 4 winners. So Ben Siliberto was one of 2 of the $1,000 winners in a paid trip to the National Leadership Convention. And then Kamakshi Kuchal was the runner-up. She won $500. And then the 2 quarterfinalists were Kaylee Milton and Cindy Wang. And we won $200. And then last but not least, West High led the state with 14 National Merit semifinalists. So that was super exciting. And once again, we're super proud. Thank you for your time, and have a good night.
Thank you. We do not have a Tate rep for tonight, but thank you to our students from City, West, and Liberty. Looking forward to seeing you next month. Next up, we will have the ICEA update from President Brady Shutt.
Hi, Brady Shutt, President of ICEA, President Malone, Vice President Williams, Director, Superintendent Degnerus. Great to be here. And I think, as you can see, it's amazing to be a teacher in our district. Just all of the things that are going on. We have awesome students like the ones that are here tonight. So I just want to say, whoop, whoop, thanks for coming. And I do want to give a shout out. Obviously, we saw the rankings with our 3 comprehensive high schools at 1st, 6th, and 12th. And we have the student for 4 years, but I'm really mindful of 9 years that precedes that in our amazing elementary schools and our junior high schools. And so I think that a lot of times we see that at the very end with what the high school rankings are and the national merit rankings are, and those are important. And I'm a high school teacher for a lot of years, but I think I just want to also give a shout out to all the folks down at those, the junior highs and the elementaries, because I think they do an amazing job to get them ready for our 4 years with them. So as school has started, I wasn't here to give the shout out and thanks to Jeff and his team. I mean, it looks not nearly as good now as when we started, but just thanks for everything that you did. There's a ton of work that goes on in the summer. I know Nick in HR and Adam in business, also just an incredible amount of work with some of the changes in the law that they've had to deal with. And then all of the team here for what they did. I will say that just on behalf of Liberty, we were super excited that last Friday, Liberty was chosen as the winner of a little contest that we had on social media. And so all these folks came and cooked breakfast for us, which was amazing. It was the talk of the hallways. By the time I got there, I was a little late. They were all eating breakfast, which I was a little confused about. But I was assured that everybody else was served. So just thanks to Superintendent Degner and your team, and to, we're going to call him the pitmaster down here in the front row for some amazing smoked goods. So, all right. So thanks, everybody. It's been a great start to the school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is community comment. Thank you for your interest in the Iowa City Community School District and for your willingness to share your comments. You are reminded to give your name, address, and topic on which you plan to speak. During community comment, persons may speak to the board about topics relevant to the district. Speakers who make comments are reminded that they are responsible for their own statements and may be subjected to legal action for those which include hate speech and that are threatening, harassing, or defamatory in nature. It is expected that speakers will address the board and each other with civility and abide by the stated time limits. All community comment directed at non-agenda items and agenda items shall take place at the beginning of the meeting and shall be limited to 4 minutes per speaker. Speaker's time limit will be displayed on the screens above Board Secretary Kim Colvin and the additional screens around the room. The initial comment period shall be limited to 1 hour. Remaining comment, to the extent necessary, shall take place at the end of the meeting. The board will not engage in any discussion during public comment. The role of the board during this time is to listen. And with that, our first speaker is Rose.
Okay. I am back up here again to talk on behalf of the journalism program at City High. Earlier this year, our yearbook staff had the intent to send out a Google form to ask kids for their preferred names so they could not be dead named on the yearbook. We've had that problem in the past because sometimes Canvas just doesn't work right and will give us a kid's dead name. But with recent legislature and rules, the yearbook program and the journalism program in general just asked the board to work with us and find some sort of loophole so we don't have to dead name our queer students in our yearbook. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. That was our only community comment for tonight, so we will move to agenda approval. Is there a motion for tonight's agenda?
I move approval of tonight's agenda.
Second.
Board Secretary Colvin, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. Thank you, Director Abraham. Director Eastham, have you voted?
I'm sorry. I'm favor, is that right?
Yep.
Sorry, I was distracted here,
Oh,
Kim.
that's okay. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. And before we dive into consent agenda approval, were there any additional questions regarding bills from those who reviewed them? Hearing none, are there any items directors would like to pull from tonight's consent agenda? If there are none, I would call for a motion.
I move we pass tonight's consent agenda.
Second.
Board Secretary Colvin, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. Our next item is the 100 series policy under policy review. And I know Director Finch chairs that, so I would look to Director Finch and Superintendent Degner to see if there's additional comments on that item.
I don't have any additional comments. I think we had about a 5-minute meeting on it a couple of weeks ago, just some changes to the bullying harassment policy and See Say Something campaign. Do you have anything to add, Superintendent Degner?
No, I think you nailed it. It was a pretty quick meeting. That was it. Yep.
Okay. That takes us to tonight's presentation. The first one is truancy. Superintendent Degner. do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, I'll
before-
just introduce Rachel Zimmerman Smith. I'll let her introduce the rest of her team. She's the county attorney here for Johnson County, and they're going to handle some truancy cases a little bit differently this year. I'm going to step away from the microphone here and help her upload her presentation, but we wanted to welcome her this evening and introduce her to you guys.
Matt, that lapel mic up there, should just be able to switch it on and.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rachel Zimmerman Smith, the Johnson County Attorney. I wanted to introduce Emily Voss, who is the lead of our juvenile division in the Johnson County Attorney's Office. And then to my right, our defense attorney, Aaron Eddy, who works with us every day, but who started a truancy program in Lynn County and will be serving as attorney for parents in this process. And to Aaron's right is Magistrate Chad Thomas, who is one of the two magistrates who have agreed to oversee the new diversion program. So I just asked them to be here. Christine Boyer is also the other magistrate who has volunteered. She's not able to be here because she's doing another good work volunteering for Kids First in North Liberty. So she's also agreed to be part of this program. So I just wanted you to be able to put faces with names and know that there are people involved who really care about kids in this community every day. So, and they can take questions too when we're done with their PowerPoint if you guys want to sit down, or you can stand, either way. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of the history of truancy in Johnson County. It's had many iterations. I've been in the county attorney's office since 2004. I think Emily's been there a little, 2007. So there's been lots of different ways that Johnson County does truancy. When Pat White was county attorney, he just had a group of community volunteers, including like the University of Iowa athletic director, and they would just get together and talk to the 3 kids that were missing school. At that time, it was a long time ago, but it was a small community effort to get kids back to school, and we've certainly tried to include elements of that in this program by including the community. So you all here care about kids, the consequences of truancy, low academic performance, high dropout rates, and criminal involvement. Those statistics are clear. And there's a lot of effect on academic performance for kids who aren't in school. In a room full of educators, I don't feel like I need to educate anyone here on that. Every indicator indicates that kids need to be in school to learn, and that is what helps kids learn, is to be present in school. It's the effect of high school completion, obviously. Frequent absences make it more likely that a kid's going to drop out in high school. We don't want that to happen. And this all has the effect of higher rates of criminal involvement with criminal justice system, which, believe it or not, I'm trying to keep people out of the criminal justice system. In a perfect world, we would have no one to prosecute. Emily and I wouldn't have jobs, and these guys would have to do other things too. But that's really what we're trying to do, is to divert people away from the justice system. So not being in school is a problem if that's what our goal is. I'm just going to skip through that. So the Iowa Code, the Iowa Truancy Code, is in Chapter 299. Compulsory attendance age is 16, so if you start the year and you're 16, you're subject to the compulsory attendance rates. And the 5-year-old, if you're 5, by September 15th, that also makes you subject to the compulsory attendance rate if you're enrolled. I know some kids don't start kindergarten until they're 6. If they're not enrolled, we don't go after them if they're 5 and not enrolled, but if they're not enrolled, this would obviously not apply to them. So this is our old truancy process. It is very complicated. It's actually less complicated than it had been. And I'm gonna just kind of talk a little bit about this and then let Emily talk about the new truancy process because she's really the one responsible for streamlining it and making it better. So during the old process, it was very cumbersome and lasted a long time. Cases got referred by the school district, by building, and through the central office to our office. We would send a warning letter or first mediation, depending on where we were in that process. And then there would be another attendance review. Then we'd go to second mediation, another attendance review, third mediation. The problem with this old system is that by the time we are mediating, kids have missed an incredible amount of school, almost insurmountable, I would say, months. So these are the Johnson County daily attendance rates, which have been steadily dropping, as you can see, over time. All of the districts have been dropping, and Iowa City is in the blue there. We are no exception. The drop-off, I think, is interesting just post-COVID especially. I think kids kind of got out of the habit of having to be in school. I know my kids did. And so I think this is just really telling, and it's going to be a bigger problem if we don't do something about it now, do something meaningful. Kindergarten through 8th grade, sort of the same, although we can see by this graph that kindergarten through 8th graders, they're in school more frequently, but the drop-off is still there. So this is just an example of the referrals made by the district to our office, and I can't see my comments. Do you have the numbers? Yeah, that's fine. So just to give you an example, so that pie chart in 2021, the way that we calculate the absences in my office, which may be different than the way schools are calculating it, so I'm just, that's different. City High, so the secondary schools, those are periods missed, so it's not that somebody missed 232 days of school. There aren't 232 days of school, but those are classes missed, and then the elementary schools are actual days. So for instance, in 2021, Christine Grant Elementary, 64 average absences before referral. City High, 232 average absences prior to referral. West, 122. Northwest, 252. Mark Twain had 32 before referral. So those, and Superintendent Degner has these numbers if anybody's interested in seeing them. By 2022, those numbers had not gotten any better. They continue to go up. West High grew to, I think, 244 missed periods. So Lucas, 83 missed days before referral. So you can see that is a lot of school to miss, especially for elementary age kids. So, and we keep having parents come in, and I have to say, for the folks in the buildings, schools in Iowa City do incredible things to get kids to school. The things that teachers and principals and building staff do to get kids in the door, it's really amazing, and they work with families on a daily basis. I think the problem is by the time they get to my office, there's nothing else we can offer them. They've mediated at the school level. They've been offered supports, and we're just sort of, and they've missed half the school year, and it's not something that my office or me can help with. So our idea is to change the process so we're intervening with kids sooner and in the proceedings, give them some supports, have the parents, and by the way, truancy gets charged against the parents, not kids. Does everybody know that? So these are charges that go against the parents. So the new process will involve a citation for truancy. And Emily is going to talk to you a little bit about how that's going to work. The idea with this is not to punish. These aren't citations that somebody goes out and gets arrested. They are served by the Johnson County Sheriff to come to the courtroom where they will see one of the magistrates, either Magistrate Thomas or Boyer. They will have Aaron there to advise them, as he did in Lynn County, and he can probably answer questions about how they set this up in Lynn County. And basically, it'll be a time for us to say, how are you going to get your kids to school? How can we help you? It is our hope that somebody from the district will be there to assess the needs of each family, make sure that we are addressing those, connect them with services if we're not. And the whole goal of it is to get somebody to school. If they improve, we dismiss the case at no cost to the parent. Aaron's also providing services through the Lynn County Advocate at no cost to the parent or family. And the citation would get expunged from the record immediately. That's part of this proceeding. We don't want this punished. We want this to just communicate a community expectation that school is good. We want kids to be in school and feel like they belong. And hopefully this process will help with this. So.
All right, thank you. So in our old process, as Rachel was saying, we would have the families come in, somebody from the school would be there. I would start asking them things that they need. And we did realize everything we were asking or trying to do, the school already did. And so we would have these mediations again, and like we said, it would take a long time. So by the time that we did get to court and the parents got an attorney, it was so much later in the school year, and nothing had happened in between that time. So very little education was happening while we were doing these different mediations. So the process that we're going to move to is just a bit more efficient in that we shorten up the time before they go before a judge. And to me, one of the things that I think is very beneficial is we move up the time that the parents get an attorney. I think that a lot of times when people come into our mediations, they don't necessarily want to share everything that's happening with us. And I try hard to work with parents, but the fact of the matter is I'm a prosecutor with the county attorney's office. The other part of my job is child in need of assistance and delinquencies, and so I'm not people's friends necessarily. So I think having an attorney for the parents gives them an opportunity to have someone on their side that they trust, that they can talk to. And then Aaron can talk to us about what maybe they're too embarrassed or too whatever to tell us, and see if we can help them. And so the process then goes to, we have the initial appearance, like this, Rachel had said, they'll get served with a citation. There'll be an initial appearance where they'll go before a magistrate or a judge and be able to plead guilty or not guilty. And at that time, we'll offer them the ability to take part in the mediation program. And we will explain to them that at that point in time, they'll get their attorney and they'll work with us and kind of have those mediations, but with their attorney. We'll have checks and balances on how they're doing with school and continue on that way. So in this chart, which is kind of hard to see, but at every point, there's a chance for the case to be dismissed. If whatever the issue was remedied, we can dismiss the case. Or we can set it for another mediation or another check-in, and then we can dismiss it. So we have the option throughout the whole process to do that. So we have the option as well as if the parent is not participating, they're not making changes, we don't have to continue down this path, and they can just take that to court and fight it out in court, if that's what they choose to do. But we're hoping that they'll take part in this, and I believe, again, Aaron can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in Lynn County, the few years they've been doing this, I don't think they've had anyone really go to an actual contested trial about mediation and about truancy, or at least that's my understanding. So, so that's what our hope is to cut down on the amount of school kids are missing before we get some real action taken by the parents. And so when we have these mediations and when they have their attorney, they can come in, we can try to work with them, see if there's something we're missing. One of the key things that I think in getting in sooner is we are seeing, especially since COVID, lots of kids with anxiety about going to school. And it's so hard because the longer they're away from school, the higher the anxiety is going to be, and so we need to get them to come and not have these big gaps. So again, intervening sooner, we can hopefully avoid those huge gaps in school where that anxiety continues to grow. We can get involved when they're younger. we can help them get the patterns kind of set to go to school and not have, you know, the same issue over and over again. And then they're so far behind in school, and it's just so hard to catch up at that point in time. And as mentioned earlier, we're hoping that the outcome in the end is more educated kids, less delinquencies, more eyes on children, in my opinion, younger children, making sure they're getting all of their needs met and anything going on. And for the family and the parents to have an advocate that's there for them, that they can tell anything they want to, and that person doesn't have to tell us, they won't get in trouble. I think those things are important. And again, I think just in general, we've kind of reiterated the facts of what is the benefit of going to school and of a truancy program. So that is what we are hoping to kind of transition into this year in working with the magistrates and with Aaron. We're hoping to have a better option for the parents in moving forward and a better option for the kids to not miss so much school. So I think that is everything. If people have questions.
Directors?
I have a couple of questions. Erin, with your experience in Lynn County, have you seen any parents who just plead guilty and refuse to engage in the process?
Not very many. And I think part of the way the program was set up in Lynn County was that if you do come in to the meetings, and then there would be a representative from the school, there would be the prosecutor, me, we would have a conversation about what's going on with attendance. And the thought process was, if you're voluntarily participating and you're doing everything you can, then we would have a discussion. I think that didn't happen from what I've seen. Someone would just say, no, I just don't want to participate. Because I think most parents really do want to improve attendance. If there's some kind of benefit to be had in the process, what's the harm in going? And I think most parents saw it that way.
And then my next question is for Superintendent Degner. What are we going to do to message out this policy change to our parents and family? Because like something Emily said resonated with me, which is avoiding isn't the strategy and it makes anxiety worse. And Amy Colley used to work at City, and she's the one that first told me that avoidance is not a strategy. And as a parent, that had never clicked with me. And so I wonder if like some of this is just parents who need to understand your kid has to be in school. And I think COVID did contribute a lot to how kids go to school. So I think our parents need a communication or a heads up that we're getting serious and this new process is in place.
Yeah, so a couple things. One is I think we're working on what some of that communication looks like now, because when you kind of think about tiering out the levels of students, right, the ones we're talking about getting referred are still some pretty extreme attendance cases, right, that we've already intervened in a lot of other fashions before we would refer them this direction. And so I think we want some measured communication, talking about probably the importance of attendance and being in school, but also not necessarily, scaring everybody, with something that isn't likely to present for most families. The other thing is, if your student has ever missed a several number of days, you know how popular the attendance letters are that go home. As an assistant principal, I wrote a lot of those, and there's no, what happened, really? Are we gonna do that again? It was working so good. I've written several of those, and there's no good way to ever make those come across. And so putting in there, things around compulsory education law, potential citations, it's not going to give people a warm and fuzzy. So I think there's probably a build-up to some of that communication, where then some of the individualized communication eventually comes home that we are serious about this. If you continue along this path, you could potentially see these consequences or maybe this intervention, and so we'll message some of that carefully, but I wonder if it starts with just the importance of being in school and some of that, and that wouldn't be a ill-timed message here as we get several weeks into the school year now, just to reiterate that importance. I mean, there's other data points we can put in there. Rachel had talked about kind of high school completion. We know that freshman year is huge for credit accumulation. If kids don't accumulate credits that freshman year, it's really difficult to graduate high school on time. And so I think there's a lot of healthy points we can put in there rather than just focusing on what the consequence is, but we want to be real with people that this is a law and you do need to be in school and we expect you to be in school, and I think that actually helps parents. when parents have that communication to be able to work with their kid, we've seen, I know from some of those interactions, that it actually helps the parent with their student get them in the door too.
And then what you said made me think of one more question for the team over here. How many students, maybe based on Lynn County, do we have an idea that may go through this process in a given year?
I actually think that may be a better question for the administrative staff, because the referral, the rules about who you're referring to our office come from the district. So that's really a question for Superintendent Degner and his team to talk about who's going to get referred. Certainly would love to come back to you all next fall, report on what happened this year with numbers and data, and continue and tweak this. I did want to say I feel like this is partially as just in support of teachers and school staff. I think in some of the mediations, which I used to do, there's a frustration that nothing's ever going to happen, so why should we even refer them anywhere? And that is not true anymore. So that's just sort of the message we want to get across. Again, we're not trying to punish parents. We want kids in school. That's the whole goal. That's the whole goal. So
I think that number would be hard for us to predict, partially because we've had probably some struggles with system implementation, even on referrals to the county attorney's office because of some of those timeline concerns. You know, some of the campuses that are listed here, I wouldn't say they have any more or less of an attendance problem with their students than another campus. It's just a matter of, are they following the process and are they trying to use those channels? Other campuses may have said, hey, that's not really worth our time, or it hasn't been an effective one. And so, like Rachel said, our staff are doing tremendous things to try to get kids in the door and to do that on a consistent basis. But for us to forecast what that looks like, I think we'd have a hard time being able to do that at this point. But we are trying to set some of those thresholds for when we would make that referral and what are the interventions we've exhausted first before we do that. And I think, you know, we'd take a measured approach to that and want to make sure we felt confident that we've tried several of our usual strategies too before we'd make that referral.
I have a quick question. So for a parent whose first language isn't English, does the county offer interpreters to assist with the citation hearing?
Yes, and the court also does, we do interpretation. So if there needed to be an on the record hearing, and I could let Judge Thomas talk about how that works for a minute if you want to talk, but my office certainly would provide interpretation for any parent that is not isn't, for whom English is not their first language, they're not comfortable. And Aaron and I work every day on the criminal side with those issues, and we often have interpreters involved. So.
And just from the judicial branch side, so we have for our District 6, a coordinator for interpreters. So as soon as we know somebody that's in our system might need an interpreter, we contact that individual. We're required to use certified interpreters. We can't just have somebody's friend or that show up. We try and get live interpreters if we can. Some of the languages get, as you probably know, serving folks in the school district, some of the languages get very, very obscure, and it's a very small set of people. So we do have contracts with 2 different telephone language lines that we can usually round somebody up through that and use the phone interpreter service if that's what we need to do. But yeah, we generally can provide languages in just about any service with an independent interpreter there for folks. And we do have some discretion too. It's kind of happened more sometimes like in small claims and that, but we kind of have discretion to sort of maybe open the line with the interpreter, and we might step out and let the folks continue to talk so that, you know, if that's what's needed during a mediation is to have an interpreter available, that's a resource the judicial branch has. So.
And, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to add really quickly on that's during our mediations, the informal ones, we did not get to utilize the court systems interpreters. So that is another kind of unfortunately, but a benefit of having a citation is it does open up that whole realm of funding for us to get interpreters and different people in to help us during the hearings.
Just a quick question. Thank you for coming tonight to explain all this for us. first of all, is this effective immediately? And then secondly, you mentioned anxiety as one of the reasons for truancy. I was just curious, what are the other common reasons for truancy?
Well, I'll answer yes. It is effective immediately. And there are many, many reasons. I think transportation is the one of the number one cited reasons. And then Emily's been doing more recent.
Yeah, I think that it depends on the age. I think once you hit maybe 5th, 6th grade, you get into more of the anxiety portion of it. Below that, it's much more transportation or basically, I mean, it is transportation, but getting kids to school. So if parents are at work, the kids getting up, getting there, maybe older siblings that are trying to get them there, or whatever the case may be. I think we all know that for everyone, mornings are tough. And so that is the key. Like if we could have someone go into everybody's home playing some lovely music, bringing coffee and donuts, like it would probably help everybody. But so those are I think the things that we see the most. I think one of the issues with transportation is that like group that's in the 1.7 to 1.9 mile range, right? Because I think at 2 miles is where the bus comes in. And so we had several parents come in that said that their kid is supposed to walk there, but they have to go on a busy street and they're a young child. And, you know, the schools do a great job of trying to work with them to find buddies to walk with and to do those different things. But those are the ones that I think we see the most in it. And just so you know, as far as starting it right away, the people that we are starting to see now are people that we actually continued to have problems with at the end of last year who have sort of gone through our mediation and this year have already stopped coming. And so the first group of people are going to be people that have actually had both. And so kind of our first round will be people that have gone through the other process as well.
I'm so pleased that you have a attorney for the parents. I just think that's a great, great addition to this. You know, you mentioned that maybe transportation is the issue, but maybe that's the stated issue, but it's not the real issue. You know, that's something else. And I just saw, I think that will really help some of the barriers that we saw before in this system because the parents have somebody they can talk to and tell the whole story to and then solve from there. So I applaud you for that.
I would just say that I think this kind of collaboration is what the future looks like, and it's necessary. And we've all been around about the same amount of time, and this is just not the kind of collaboration I've ever seen. I mean, having the magistrate here, having the attorney here, having you guys speak to us so candidly about the situation. And I know we previously have met with you to discuss this. The superintendent has met with you. So whether or not it's perfect, right? Yeah, so it's not, right? It's not perfect. Okay. But the important thing is that there's this willingness to collaborate. And as Rachel keeps saying, it's not about being punitive. It's about educating. It's about keeping the kids in school. So I just want to say that I'm grateful that that's the path that the county attorney's office has decided to take, and that we got to keep on working together on this.
Yeah, thank you, Maka, and other people have commented too. It is important that we collaborate. That's the only way we'll make changes in the attendance rate. In terms of numbers, Matt, I'm just looking at the graphs here on kindergarten through 12th grade attendance. It's in the 92% or so range for this year, I think. So about 8% non-attendance. That would be, that's well over 1,000 kids. I'm not sure that's surely that includes more non-attendance, multiple non-attendances for one child. So I'm not sure that's that many students. But anyway, getting a handle on the number of students would be helpful for me anyway. But I want to go back to actually a couple of commenters. The real reason kids don't come to school is probably not because they can't get a ride or they don't have transportation or for other easily resolvable things. I continue to hear, as a board member, parents and students that complain about being bullied and harassed to the extent that they're not comfortable being in class or being in the building. I don't know if that's a major part of why kids are not wanting to attend, but surely it is some part of what we're trying to work on here. And so I guess, Matt, and maybe Rachel, I'd ask you too, if a parent says, my kid's not coming to school because they're getting bullied, then how does that work out in the process we're describing here?
I'll let Emily.
I'm gonna jump in first. I would say that's something we would have usually learned about before it would get to a referral to the team over here. I feel like that's something our folks would have talked about and tried to diagnose with the student, and most likely would have had success in finding that out. I would not link our, whatever attendance concerns we have to a widespread bullying charge. I think those are very individualized, personalized stories where that does happen. Again, I would probably want to pull our data and link that, but I don't think that would be the defined reason in the predominant case. I think those are probably the stories we remember and some of the stories we feel compelled to respond to, but I don't think from when we look at rates and the high percentage of kids that aren't attending, I would not attribute it to a bullying and harassment concern. I think those things are diagnosed, and then we have a responsibility to try to cure that environment so that student attends. In that case, even with the recent legislative change, if there's a founded case, they can ask for a different attendance center where they can attend. And so there's a lot of ways for us to mitigate that concern. I'll let these guys share a different experience, but I would say it's going to be a host of other factors before that's the probably compelling large number of our absences.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, as far as when we did our mediation, I've only had maybe one parent who said that bullying was the reason they couldn't get their kid to go to school and that it wasn't resolved by the school. And I think probably we've had like one or two kids say that they maybe started not going because of something happening with someone else. But that isn't what led them to keep not going. In the schools, again, we've seen them come in and do wonderful jobs of trying to figure out ways to work around that bullying aspect and coming up with alternatives for the kids. So again, by the time it comes to us, I've not had many parents say that at all. In fact, I can only really think of one that said that was the reason they couldn't get there.
Well, that's actually, your remarks are really reassuring, and I could advance a theory which is proved wrong by experience and actual facts. And I'm glad that that's happening. So.
Just real quick, thank you all for being here. I think folks have said it. The fact that you all showed up and you're here to advance this makes me proud to live in Johnson County, to be honestly. And then also just having been involved, when it gets to that level, these are pretty extreme cases, and there's not very many of them, but I guarantee you they're all complicated, and they got stuff going on. And so we just need more tools in our toolbox. And one thing about the old tool, it wasn't very effective. I mean, I'd sat through some of those hearings, and it was just too late. I mean, quite frankly, too late in the kid's life, too late in the problem, too late in the year. And the earlier we can get there and the earlier we can support our families, it takes a village. So thank you all for coming, and it's been helpful. I hope this works.
Thank you so much for the presentation tonight.
Thank you for having us.
We'll be back.
Yes.
Thank you.
Forward to it. Next up is the presentation on Green Ribbon Schools.
All right, Chase, you want to go ahead and introduce Ben and kind of dust off the award we received, per se?
Good evening. So we've talked about this a couple times. We're really excited. Ben is here to talk about Green Ribbon Schools. We mentioned this at the end of last year, and then I think again in August, about the great work that our facilities team has done, as well as our curriculum team and just everyone in the district, as we look at how our schools can have a positive impact on the environment. And that work over the last decade has been rewarded at the national level. And so Ben is here to speak on behalf of the team about all the great work that's gone into those efforts over the last several years. So this is Ben Graham.
Did you want to talk first, Jeff? Okay. So The award actually has a technical name. It is the 2023 U.S. Department of Education Green Ribbon School District Sustainability Award. The U.S. Department of Education is very particular about how we state that, and so I had to point out that we have to have that very clear. So what this award is, or where this award came from, is the U.S. Department of Education was really trying to develop engagement initiatives to reach out across the United States and kind of have some examples and highlights of sustainability efforts within school districts and kind of promote sustainability across the United States. The award's actually two different awards. There's one where you can win an award for an individual school for any number of sustainability efforts. The second award is actually a district-wide award. And so the Iowa City School District actually won the district-wide award as one of 11 school districts across the United States to win that this year. So in order to win the district Green Ribbons Schools Award, it really has to show how there's a systemic approach to sustainability within education as well as within the operational side of things. So for this award, we actually had to pull information and data from about 16 different people across the district, including faculties and administrators and our craftsmen and our HVAC guys and all the different personnel that is behind the operations as well as education. So it really represents years and years and years worth of work. Some of the work are mentioned within the award actually dates back prior to Dwayne being the facilities director. So it's years and years of right decision making by our administrative team, our craftsmen at the front of repairing things, as well as the school board as far as giving direction in that. So the award's broken into three major pillars. The first one is reducing environmental impact and costs. So that'd be things like geothermal, light harvesting, things of that nature. The second pillar is health and wellness of students and staff. So this would be like getting light into the classrooms, be about asbestos mitigation and lead testing and things of that nature. And then pillar three is environmental and sustainability education. So this would be outdoor classrooms in STEM, things of that nature. So some of the highlights to the application is actually 16 pages long. I do suggest everybody read it because to my knowledge, it's the only document that really kind of highlights all of our efforts as far as sustainability goes. But some of the highlights are the 2019 Board Climate Action Resolution. I think in order to even win this award, you actually had to have some sort of resolution at the board level. Our geothermal systems, right now we have 25 of 29 schools that have geothermal systems, and I think that number is probably going to increase here in Facilities Master Plan 2.0. Electrification of our HVAC, so getting rid of gas boilers, switching over to electricity, which is renewable, as well as like kitchen appliances on Allison's end of things. And of course, outdoor classroom learning spaces, prairies, things of that nature are very important. The STEM education I can't really speak to. Carmen took care of that in the application process. But there are things like student gardening, composting, recycling programs that are student-run, student-driven, and so we tried to highlight a lot of those efforts within that application as well. So for the award, the district was invited to go out to the U.S. Department of Education to receive that award. Jeff and I were able to go out there, and as a part of that were different webinars and education sessions and greet and meets and things of that nature. So some of the bigger takeaways that I would consider forward thinking that schools have had success on, I put a slide in here. So a green bus is one of those ideas that I thought was actually really neat. So they think of like the bookmobile that travels around town. It's a green bus, has solar panels on top of it, it's an electric bus. And inside it's populated with all sorts of green activities that students can do. Maybe it's prairie seed, maybe it's more books, maybe it's a video or whatever that was. CHIPS was a new thing to us, which is collaborative for high performance schools. So this is taking small level renovation projects where we might add on a secured entrance and making sure that we apply sustainable design factors in there, whether it's light harvesting, whether it's LED lights, things of that nature. So this is a nonprofit organization that tries to balance between lead schools and wellness schools and make a renovation repeatable without having to go out and re-engineer it. So some of the other cool things with sustainability and education, There's a lot of schools that are drawing connection between the operations side as well as the education side. So maybe it's schools growing plants that then the operations side takes out of the greenhouse and plants out around the school district. And those I kind of lumped all together, greenhouse microfarms, larger educational type gardens, kind of like our outdoor classrooms that we're working on right now. So that is basically the award in a nutshell.
Can we see the award? Nice. And is it possible to get the presentation loaded into board docs just so community members can, if they're listening or watching this back, they might want to take a look at it? Thank you. Do any other directors have comments, questions?
Well, I wonder about that application too. Could we get, you said to look through it. I don't know if send it to us or if someone can link on board docs, but I'd certainly like to take a look.
You do that.
Am I correct in thinking this? Did you talk to us last year about grounds? It was about prairie spaces and things like that,
Probably.
right?
Yes,
Isn't
yes,
that
he
yeah?
did.
So
Yes.
this is the second time you've come to us with just excellent information. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Any other director Eastham?
Well, I'm just mulling over or thinking about, we had students and community members come and talk to us 3 years ago, something like that, 3 or 4 years ago, before we put together a sustainability plan, which you guys did just really, really well. And we had the good grace to adopt it. So, you know, when I think about what's happening in the district, it's really good. This is certainly one of the things that's really, really, really good. You know, your work, your support, this support we've been able to provide, and the results. You know, having geothermal systems in so many buildings, providing that energy from that source, no carbon footprint there. And the other, you know, going from gas to electrification in the heat sources for the kitchens, all the things that I keep bugging Dwayne about whenever he talks about facilities. We followed through on all of that. It's not something that happens in 1 or 2 meetings. It takes some time, but we've done it. So I really appreciate, just really, really appreciate what you guys have done. And I think the community should be happy too.
Thank you.
I'd like to add one thing. We were one of 11 school districts in the whole United States to get this award. So
That
it
is
is
great.
something
Right,
to be
yeah.
proud of.
That's great.
I have to wonder what all those private schools around here are doing, so,
Director Clausen?
sorry.
It feels like it should be a bigger thing, a bigger celebration. Like, this is huge, right? This isn't just, what?
Yeah, we should have cake. I
Cake?
heard you say cake.
Like green cake? You know, but it's a big deal. So, but here's my question, just because, you know, we can always do more with this, but we're getting to that point where we're really sustainable. And that's what's good about this, because these things we're doing, this will last for a very long time. These are 50-year things. These are long-term supports. Could we see at some point just what it would cost to convert our fleet of buses to electric buses? I'm sure that price tag would make us all faint, but just to know kind of what's out there as things are changing, what does it look like? You know, I'm not saying we're going to do this in a couple years, but that's because on our climate plan, that's where we can have the impact, right? That's where, because we're kind of done, right? If we're getting our electric from Mid-American, we're getting wind. If we're, we've got geothermal, we've done, almost as much as we can to make our buildings efficient and run well. And the buses is that last piece. And obviously, maybe it's not doable. It's probably not, certainly not doable to replace the whole fleet. I know that. But it would be good to know what that looks like.
Yes, the short answer is we can bring that back to you, and that goes to what Director Easton was saying about our sustainability plan that the board was very supportive of several years ago. We owe you an update on that probably anyway, and so I can work with Director Williams, and maybe we can start that conversation at one of our upcoming ops meetings, probably not in October, but this winter we can definitely do that. Director Clausen, you're right. As we get past electricity, our bus fleet, our vehicles in general is probably that next biggest chunk when we look at reducing our carbon footprint. And so it's not only about our bus fleet, because that is a very large bite, but what about our other vehicles in the fleet, and what are some things that we can do there? And it's being done. And so we know that Cedar Rapids purchased, I think, 2 electric buses, something like that. When Ben sent that to me, he said Cedar Rapids moved to electric buses, and I almost fell out of my chair because I thought he meant the entire fleet, but they didn't. And so I think there are some steps that we can take, but we can definitely have that conversation with you. You know, we had the class from Lincoln that came and spoke to you all last year, and Allison and I went out and met with them to hear about their ideas in the cafeteria. And so it's not just about those things that we can do behind the scenes, like our energy grid. It's also what are those things that are visible in our schools to really teach our kids, or have them continue actually to teach us in some ways about sustainability and the importance of those practices. And so I appreciate you all seeing the positivity in it, and we'll definitely come back and have more of that conversation with you.
Great. Yeah, and I just agree with JP. Like, this is such a huge accomplishment that you all have done. And to echo Jeff, like 1 of 11 in the entire country. I think before COVID, the number one thing we heard from the community at the meetings since I've been on the board is sustainability, environmental, our climate plan. And if there is a way to sing this more from the rooftops so that the community really understands the hard work and dedication that you all put into that and have been acknowledged for, the team is probably like, what else do you want us to do? But I mean, just something to let everybody know how hard you guys worked, and that it got recognized at, such a high level would be, I think, well-deserved for you all to get that recognition.
Well, thanks for that. One thing the team's heard me say a lot of times before, I believe, is that one of the best parts about working in Iowa City is the high expectations, right? Like, I think we do great work each and every day, but to get to excellence, it doesn't just always happen, right? And our standard is always excellence. And so sometimes to get to excellence, you have to have people that push you in uncomfortable ways, right? And I think that is what's happened a little bit with the climate stuff at different points, that there was great work Ben talked about that was going on in our facility planning process that people probably weren't aware of and that we weren't getting awards for, but that took long-term commitment to it. Then we get additional push, right? Because we are in Iowa City and people expect excellence. And then we push ourselves even further to do those things. Just like this, we're talking about an award tonight. And then we want to talk about electric buses, right? We want to keep doing the next thing. That's the only way, though, you achieve excellence, right? Is that you can never settle for good and you can never settle for great. And so I think we do need to be appreciative of the community. We need to be appreciative of the people that then take those and can always rise to the challenge and do that. And that's what the team did in this scenario. So very good. We can, we've been trying to do some different things with press releases. I don't remember if we've done one around this. We can continue to communicate it out, highlight it. I think there's some good things to share around there, but people should know that they're in a district that values that, right? And that it's taken a commitment from the community, from the board, from the team of leaders to implement those things. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation tonight, and thank you, team, for all the hard work to get us there.
Yes.
Next up is the ICCSD Center for Innovation presentation, and I see Superintendent Degner at the microphone, but I don't know if Deputy Ramey, oh, okay, you were reaching for the mic.
I don't think you wanted to do this one, right? Yeah. Okay. Let me get it pulled up here. So of the theme on being excellent and excellence in Iowa City, we think about what the future is going to look like here in Iowa City. And as we always call ourselves a destination district and a place that educators want to come and that we want students to feel great about their experience and honestly to continue to inspire families for us to be the choice of the future. One thing I've discussed with you guys that we unveiled to the staff and here kind of now publicly tonight is ICCSD 2030, and really kind of that course for the future about what is our commitment to our community in the future, and how are we going to remain excellent and be that destination district. And we really identified 4 large themes of the ways we're going to do that. And obviously under Pillar 1 is the one we're going to spend time talking about tonight with the Center for Innovation. But the first one really talks about continuing to innovate student learning experiences. And there, with that one, I really think about all of our educators care about their learners, but are we designing learner-centered experiences, right? Not school-centered experiences. And that's kind of deep when you dig into it about what that really means and what the difference is, but continuing to push ourselves really about learner-centered experience. And I think that's what our kids are asking for, and that's some of the challenge in front of us with that one. We all know the value of preschool. We've all committed to it as a board goal, and from the board table, and trying to provide that universal access to preschool is critically important for some of the same data points that you heard Rachel talk to you about, right? I mean, some of those same reasons. There's no bigger impact we can make as a system than providing that preschool experience to students. So that has to be a continual driver for us. Offering robust experiences inside and outside the classroom. Here I really think about our large continuum, right? I mean, we serve everybody all the time, just like our tagline, all in for all kids. We're gonna have the best AP programs. You heard the students talk about tonight about being recognized with our success there. We serve over 80 different languages in the district. And so when you think about that whole continuum of learners, that is something we excel with, and I know other schools can't compete with when we think about the depth and breadth of our curriculum. Flip through our program of studies, you're gonna see a whole wide array of options. Again, one of those things that makes us excellent, but how do we continue to push? How do we ask the electric bus question, right? How do we do that next thing? I think that's what we have to continue to do. And then the fourth one, create lifelong relationships with students. This is connected to our why as educators, right? This is why we chose the profession we did. This is what we want to do because we see ourselves as servants that really are there to build young people and to prepare them for the next stage. So as we think about what does the future look like for Iowa City, of course it's bright. Of course we're going to do great things. But we need to have some anchor points for our community to say these are the things we're focused on. And yes, we have strategic plans that look at our student learning goals and what are the actions that we're going to take there to make sure we're achieving learning targets. But what are those big picture things, right, that should craft what we say yes to and what we say no to? And so I think that kind of sets a nice tone for why we feel it's necessary to look at something like the ICCSD Center for Innovation and why we brought you 2 years ago a purchase of a building on ACT's campus. Tonight, what I'm really going to cover with you is some of the work we've done to date and kind of a timeline of what's going on there and where we plan to go, who's on our leadership team, what is the purpose of the leadership team, what do we hope to accomplish through that, and then finally, where can we go see some best practice of what's going on and what can inspire us. So sometimes before you can do it, you have to see it, and I think that we have some exciting opportunities in front of us in that regard as well. So when we think about work to date and kind of where we've come, just a couple reminders here in this, and I'm sorry that's so small. I wonder if I keep looking up there and yeah, I'll just zoom her up a little bit. There's a little better. Okay. In the spring of 22, we purchased the Tyler building from ACT. That was its former name there on ACT's campus. In the fall of 22, we moved our online program over to the facility and also our teacher leadership program with our coordinators, coaches, and mentors. One of the reasons we brought you at the time was we'd really grown out of this existing space, and no, it's not because of the administrators, it's really because of a big commitment that the state had made around having additional teacher leader positions, right? That we had that $4 or $5 million categorical fund to finance teacher positions, which created a host of learning opportunities and professional development offerings for our staff, which have been great and really transformed some of our teach and learning practices in that regard as well. And then we also know we stood up an online program at the height of the pandemic, right? And the one that we committed to and sustaining, and we needed a home for them. And so as we've looked at our different departments, or even as we've looked at this space and we try to get a whole group staff in here, we knew we didn't have sufficient space at this site any longer. And so those were some of the initial moves we made in the fall. In the spring, you're familiar with it, we held those different feedback sessions to really try to anchor us back to, okay, what is the student programming request here? What are the things we should be thinking about from a community basis, from our staff, from you guys as board members? And I'll come back to some highlights of that again in a minute, but Trace was here and talked to you a little bit about those sessions. But I think that was a good anchor point for us to think about, okay, what is the core of this work? You know, what do we really think about with student programming, and what will be important to us here? This summer, we began some renovations over at the Center for Innovation, and they're still continuing now. And so we hope to have the district professional development space done here relatively soon this fall before the first of the year, so that we can host some of those larger full-scale PD opportunities. We've also since moved district special education staff and some of our district technology department that way. And then, of course, we formed the Center for Innovation team that I'm going to discuss with you tonight. Those community feedback sessions that were held, just to refresh your memory again, really centered around a 4-question activity if you didn't get a chance to participate in that. And it really kind of asked you to think about your own experience as a student, what stood out to you. Then it asked you the question around, what do our successful adults and citizens today, what skills do they possess? A question that more focused on, okay, what are the underdeveloped skills that we're seeing come out of our students, or that kids seem to struggle with developing all the way? And then finally, what kind of a design do we think would help us achieve those skills for kids? So as we looked at that feedback, some of those highlights that Trace had mentioned to you were really, most of our experiences are built on a relationship with an adult, right? Some solid relationship, but there's some nuance to that relationship. That relationship was one that probably challenged us, inspired us, motivated us. It wasn't just simply because the person was nice, right? It was what about that learning experience and that relationship with that adult pushed us to want to do something further in that area. So experiences that helped students find their spark and passion, those authentic experiences. And then there was also this feedback around what community opportunities are there. You know, how do we connect kids with their local community that they may want to return here someday, or that they want to stay here in general? That we have a lot of local assets that if we leverage them, kids are going to see Iowa City as a home, somewhere they can stay and they can raise their family or make a long-term future commitment here. We have multiple paths and avenues for kids to explore. I started off with that tonight, that, you know, really in our program of study, we have those now. I think part of our concern sometimes is, are kids aware of all of them? Do they even know the depth of some of those things? They may have a class in, but do they understand the depth of what careers could be there? Do they know if you go into education, it's not just teacher or principal, right? That there's a whole other host of things to do. If you go into medicine, it's not just doctor or nurse, right? That there's a whole other menu of careers that you can find there. So some of those questions. The design question came back with some interesting feedback around really being agnostic about the topics, right? I mean, the design work, when we stand something up, the topic wasn't maybe necessarily as important to the people in the room. I think it'll eventually take some important flair for us, because again, as we do what you'll see as an asset mapping activity in one of our future meetings, we have assets here in the community we should build on, right? It wouldn't make sense to stand up a whole program if we didn't have community sport or some community connections for kids to build on. You can imagine one here in this community is healthcare, right? We know we have a tremendous healthcare community. It might make sense for us to align something along that. So those specifics there, I'm not going to read those off all to you, but those were some of the feedback points there. I think a missing feedback point that we've even identified in the team that you might hear me talk about a second time here tonight is the student voice element, right? We had a lot of stuff from adults, but what do the students say to us, right? And what are the students' perspectives going to be? Part of the challenge that we've also talked about in this leadership team, the students only know what they know. They've only experienced what they've experienced. Even some of our best students might not be as familiar with some of the things we're suggesting, or maybe familiar is not the right word, comfortable, because it's not how you do school today, right? What makes you a successful student today wouldn't necessarily make you a successful student in what we would stand up for a new experience. So that'll be an interesting, I think, input point to get, and some feedback to get from our kids. Another thing I wanted to draw back to people's attention is something we haven't forgotten about is the Portrait of the Graduate and Portrait of an Educator work. So we kind of put pause on that, obviously, because we were going through a pandemic and we had some other things to right size and get back to normal. But when you think about those skills that are important to students, we've already done that work, right? We've already said as a district that these are the skills we want to make sure graduates in the Iowa City Community School District leave with, that we think are important. And we had all kinds of feedback and input into that to identify empathy and learner's mindset, adaptability, communication, critical thinking. We know what those skills we're going after are. And we also know that we want to try to foster environments for our educators. Oops, sorry. How did I do that? Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back, huh?
There.
Sorry about that. We also know we want to foster environments that allow our educators to do these things, because we've said that that is important. And you see the first one's relationship builder. What was the topic, right, from those feedback sessions? The first thing, relationships, right? So yes, they need to be a relationship builder. Then what goes into the other effective aspects that are reflective, empathetic, collaborative, culturally responsive. So we've done that work to identify those skills that we want our kids and educators to be able to possess. It's a matter of standing up programs that allow us to do that. And we have great examples of that already happening in the district. So anytime we talk about this, I think it's also important to make sure it's not a critique of what current people are doing, and it's not a criticism. It's about us continuing to that conversation to 2030 about pushing the envelope, right? Us continuing that commitment to excellence about how do we continue to innovate and evolve with the clientele that we serve here in Iowa City. So our leadership team, you see a number of people here. This grew larger than we wanted it originally. You know, if you've ever sat down in a room full of 20 people and tried to coalesce around some things, there's some unique challenges to that. But smaller is also then harder to have representation with people that wear different hats in our district. And so you can see we have a nice mix of district leaders there. We also know our district leaders probably will not be able to attend every meeting, right? And so we wanted to make sure there was at least 2 or 3 of us that would be able to be there at all of those or at different opportunities to provide voice and input to the different hats or departments that we represent. Then we have Tom Banta, who's formerly with ICAD here in the community, that has a lot of nice connections into our business community about being able to identify some potential assets for us. He's going to commit some time to working with our leadership team. We have some different building level administrators that have some passion for innovation in their career history as well. Brady's serving with us, and then you can kind of see some of our other teacher leaders here that are going to participate as well. So we had our first meeting here on the 5th of September, and we really identified what the main functions of our team were going to be. We hadn't yet done the mission work. We're going to talk about that next time. It's more kind of that question about what are we not, that we'll answer and be very clear about that. We wanted to have that in place before we go to some of these other sites and have that look for piece in place for the team about what are they looking for, what are they not looking for, so that we're clear on what that mission is. But as people were invited, they were really told those main functions of the team were going to be some commitment to see other districts' examples of innovative programming. This asset review you've heard me talk about, I think that they're all plugged in unique ways to our community to be able to share, hey, these are the things that here locally I'm aware of that we could bring to the table. Solicit and review feedback. You heard me already identify that students are one we know we need to go get some additional feedback from. Determine the eventual student offerings. So really a timeline check here for you that we'd like you to be aware of. We're hoping for some pilot programming in the fall of 24 with the scaled up program in the fall of 25. That puts us on a really tight timeline, knowing that a lot of kids make selections for courses and things in January and February. So we're going to try to push for that and really try to have some pilot programming going in the fall of 24, knowing that it'll be much more robust in the fall of 25. But we think having some kind of a goal and idea there about what we're backward planning from will make us efficient and effective in trying to move forward. And then finally, identify what funding sources may be a fit for our district to pursue. We think there's some funds out there that we can go access for this. The foundation's already graciously supported some of our work to take some of these site visits, and so we're not just looking to lean on our local community for those things. There's also probably some national funding sources that have really shifted to trying to support more innovative project, career, work-focused learning opportunities for kids as they figured out you can't just shame us on test scores and think the education system's going to get better. So I would say some of those dollars that followed paths like this one. And then other things we did at that meeting, of course, introductions, purpose. We reviewed that same feedback that we've presented here now to you a couple times, and then looked at our student interest data. This is the one where I was saying students only know what they know. So from KNAV and Zello, which are kind of our career interest inventories for our students, we saw some of the top results come in there around things like healthcare, right, or human sciences, things that they're familiar with. But we also had an interesting conversation at that first meeting that we have a whole other host of kids that have a different career track than what we would probably either be able to relate to or even believe in. That they believe they're going to go do some things as an entrepreneur or through social media that I would say most adults are skeptical of. But it's a real track for them, right? It's a real passion. It's really something they're going to do. So it's, again, not as much skill focused about what the specific is about, but back to those larger skills about what do we want them to be able to leave with so they could be adaptable. So we looked at some of that interest data, and then that's kind of where we cut off the first meeting. We're coming back tomorrow and going to talk about this mission statement, start that asset mapping, and then Trace is going to spend some time with us about lessons learned, because I think one thing, anytime you start a project like this, there's going to be things that you can learn from these other experiences, right? Things that went really well, and then what are the pitfalls or the mistakes they made so that we don't necessarily repeat those here in Iowa City, or we can kind of plan for how to mitigate any of those challenges that will come up. And then the student voice conversation, we're going to pick back up and see how we could go get some of that feedback and then really prep for these site visits. I'm going to end my presentation with showing you here. We were to have 2 meetings scheduled for October. Those now fall at the same time we're looking at our site visits, so we'll reschedule those. But you can tell we were trying to be aggressive here with get a couple more meetings done relatively soon, and then November and December is a little harder to get people together. So then finally the site visits, I would encourage you to click on these links to kind of visit some of these different schools so you get an idea what we're thinking. And in all honesty, I think you've heard me talk a little bit about career paths, workplace connections, but I think there's also a heavy focus on our team right now looking at how do you fit a project-based experience into there? What does project-based mean? It can kind of become a dirty word in education sometimes. It can be a really exciting word when you look at that. And so is there a framework we can put around what project-based learning means? And so these schools are the ones we've identified that are doing it right. And so our goal is to get everybody on the leadership team to at least 1 visit, maybe 2 if we can squeeze it in. The one in Boise, Idaho, we're able to pair with an HRS learning opportunity. So we have a smaller crew going to that one because there's an HRS level 2 conference there. So these are some really neat examples for us to consider. One that I think hits pretty close to home is another Big Ten university town, West Lafayette, Indiana. And these are the types of things when we're talking again about a standard of excellence I think we owe our community, right? Our students deserve the opportunity to have this type of an experience here. Our educators deserve to have a type of experience they could work and serve in that looks different. The story I kind of told the team when we sat down that first day was being a brand new history teacher, right? I was trained to be a history teacher, and I felt like I had a great advisor and a great new way to look at this, and we were going to teach themes, conflict, culture, and we're going to do it differently, right? And then what happens is you get into the stuff, right, into the system, and it kind of hits you. And it's not for people not working hard or trying to do things differently, but as a new person, in that system, trying to do the job, and our educators trying to do the job every day, there are things that our system puts in place that no matter how hard a person works, it's going to make them hard to flip the experience or create a different experience. And that's as simple things like bell schedules, grades, right? Having to, I said bell schedules, to switch the class every so often, the standards that you have to meet that then we designed assessment around. So is there a way you can start to remove those barriers to think about it differently, right? And I think that's the intriguing part about some of these examples is they've found effective ways to do that and kind of shift that learning experience. And so I hope we have a great opportunity to learn from some of those and to figure out what works for us here in Iowa City. Because again, I think our kids deserve it and I think our educators deserve it. One last thing I would say about our educators with this space, and it's also for our students, but it's really that whole system mentality that I told the team that I think the thing that's bothered me the most when I've seen some of these different examples is when it hasn't had the impact to the whole system, right? And so again, our commitment is all in for all kids. So what do we do at the Center for Innovation that makes an impact on the whole system? It's not good enough if it only impacts 100 or 200 kids, or if it only impacts 5 to 10 teachers, or 15 to 20 teachers, right? What are the lessons we're learning there, and the new skills or different things we're developing? How is that then going back to affect the thousands of students and the hundreds of staff members that we serve every day. So that's got to be a constant question in front of our mind as we do these look-fors at these site visits as well. So key takeaways, there's a strong desire for this. I think that's I heard it from our leadership team, the passion for it, but the part that really has me excited is when we've been able to do the different feedback sessions, whether it was Portrait of the Graduate, Portrait of an Educator, the ones we did last spring. People are hungry for something like this, right? The community wants to collaborate with us. They want to be able to do something different, and one teacher cannot connect with all those businesses, right? We need a different framework to be able to welcome the community in, to be able to do some of these things, to leverage those community assets. We need to visit some model schools so we can see what this can look like in action. And then our next steps, of course, the leadership team is going to continue to meet. We're going to look for that pilot program next year and a scaled up program the following year. So that's kind of an idea of where we've been and where we plan to go this year. I expect to come back and provide some regular updates to you guys as we meet and as we learn and as we refine our ideas that way. But happy to answer any questions you might have tonight. But this is a fun area for me, one I haven't had a big chance to talk to you guys about before, or to really spend a lot of time with. But you know, I also told the team the other day, I thought one-to-one initiative is what was going to change the future of education, right? And we learn more and we get better, right? And we go on. But I think continuing to look for those innovative ways is the only way we achieve excellence, right? And I just think it's a neat conversation to come off of a place we have achieved excellence and in a space where we are seeing excellence, and how we just continue to push that envelope further.
Directors, do you have comments or questions for Superintendent Degner?
I do. I think one of the things I find most exciting about the opportunities you are going to be exploring is that it's an opportunity to our teachers who, you've heard me say before, these are professionals. These are people that are so well educated and work so hard to be excellent. I would like to see this Center for Innovation create opportunities for teachers to get to expand or apply different skills that they bring to us. And we don't know what that looks like yet, but there can be, like, for example, teaching labs where they're teaching something different. I mean, we've seen that in little pockets, like you said, but the idea that we can say to teachers, hey, we know that you bring something different to the table. Maybe it's something you studied when you were in grad school. I don't know, everybody's got their special skills, but saying, we get it. Like, each one of you is a different professional, and we'd love to tap into it, just like we tap into our students, and bringing it out of our teachers, having them be in an environment where that's what it's all about, and then having them go back and getting to apply it so that thousands of students benefit. That's one of the things I think is really exciting about it.
Yeah, for sure, Maka. Another thing I was thinking about in reviewing this remarkable concept and work here is that this is entirely different. This is an entirely different look at public education than the look that's emanating from the state leadership at this point. And I think that's something that we should be definitely very proud and delighted about, that's occurring in this district for these students that the state is not engaged in. So it's like we're on just a different mindset, ideas here. I don't. When I listen to to this description of the center, I can't understand why the state legislature is not trying to do this too. Because this is the essence of an excellent educational system. So I'm just delighted that we're doing this, no matter what the state legislature is up to at the moment.
And these are the things I think we just need to continue to share with our community, right? I mean, Kristen and I talk all the time about different social media posts we'll put out, and we can put out positive ones, and those aren't the ones that get the clicks, right? We know on the Iowa City Press Citizen, the positive stories aren't the ones that necessarily get the clicks, but these are the stories that have to be told, right? Because they're not the ones we're gonna choose to read, and we're guilty of it too, right? You click the articles on the different news sites that probably aren't as exciting or inspiring sometimes. So we're all guilty of that, but we have to continue to share the story of public schools and the things they're doing, right? And this is one of those great opportunities that no one's settling, no one's saying that what we have is perfect by any means. Is it excellent? Is it great? I think we have those outstanding things going on all the time, but we're going to continue to look for new ways to serve our kids better, right? I think that's the challenge. Our teachers never stop learning. They're never trying to get better at what they do. We're not going to stop getting better at what we do. So continuing to share that message, I think, like you're saying, Charlie, is important for people to see, because the message being fed in other ways is not positive, right? It is not inspiring. And so it's critically important for that reason as well.
Director Finch?
Yeah, thank you. This is a lot, Matt. I can tell that you're very passionate about it, and it's a lot to digest. I really like what Director Pilcher-Hayek pointed out, in that how it's beneficial not only to our students, but about bringing our teachers back to their passion, which is so important. And I think this is one more example of how we are responsive, just like with the Green Ribbon School, how we are responsive to our community. And so kudos for that. And it also helps us to realize, I can see how this is going to help us realize our goals with the portrait of the graduate, and creating graduates who can live and work in our complex and evolving world, in meeting the goals of the adaptability, communication, critical thinking, learner's mindset, all of that. This is just a really simple question. I'm thinking like 20 steps down the road, but just in terms of logistics, and in terms of transportation out to, I know a million things have to be figured out before then, but in terms of transportation out to the Tyler building, I was wondering, have you thought about that, or what that's going to look like? Perhaps we could get JP's electric buses. Sorry, that's a loaded question, but
no, it's okay.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
it's a fair one, but I don't have an answer to it yet. And I think some of that has to do with the programming. Like, I think, things that are still on the table for us is this a standalone school? Is this a school you'd spend part of your day at and you go back to your comprehensive school? Is this just for juniors and seniors? Is this for all high school students? Right? I think some of those questions then present different answers for what our commitment is for transportation, or what the need for transportation is. And so the cool thing I told the team this week is there's no predetermined destination for this, or it wouldn't be right for us, right? Like, what we have to really do is listen to the voices in the room and what our community tells us. If we come in with a script that this is exactly what it was going to look like, then we've missed the mark. Then we haven't allowed innovation to take place. So transportation will be important, right? If we're going to serve a demographic profile that matches our district, we know we'll have to think about transportation concerns. We're going to also have to think about parking. We'll bring that one to you later. But I think those are some things, yes, logistically, that will be important. And the other part I've just told people is you got to stick with us through this. Innovation has multiple failure points, and it's easy at any of those failure points to say, it's too hard, we can't do it, right? So having that persistence to see the project through will be a big one for us. And there will be logistical challenges, there will be other challenges that'll get in our way, but yeah, we'll have to solve that one.
I am excited to see where this leads, and this is something that as a board and as administrators in the district, we should be proud, because this is steps that we're taking that will outlive our service or our tenure in the district. So everybody should be really proud about the stages that we are going to take to get to the overall finished product. So thank you, Superintendent Degner. Or did you have something, Klaus?
I'll just ask. I won't repeat all the kudos because everybody's done a good job. So because you have a plan for this fall of '24, is that going to align with middle school? Like, how are those two things kind of rolling out at the same time? What's the opportunity to sort of dovetail middle school opening up with what we heard last time was a pretty different model of how we think about 6th, 7th, and 8th grade into having this opportunity? I will just emphasize before you answer that, and I picked this out because I love the passion, but my criticism of these places too is it's for these 200 kids. But you said this is, how do we make this for everybody? Mm-hmm. And I think it's a challenge. It's a logistical challenge, but I appreciate your passion on that because, I think you can do anything in a little pocket. But the fact that we're thinking big, like how can this affect our whole district, is exciting. But the middle school question, I'd just like to know how we're gonna, if that's.
So two things I'm thinking about, one middle school and one kind of more the second half of what you said. So if we create a secondary high school experience for kids that have never been exposed to any type of learning, like we're going to introduce them to at the center, we're gonna struggle, right? And so when we talk about how it impacts all kids, what have we done grades K-8 to ready them for some type of learning experience like this, right? What have they been exposed to that would prepare them for a different type of learning experience? One of our committee members had brought that very point up, right? Like that's been part of our challenge with the regional center. We haven't articulated some of the front end courses for them to then be ready to have that high level back end experience. And so that's part of what our work has been the last 2 or 3 years. So I think about that. In terms of the middle school, I think that's where some of it plays in. So how are the opportunities we're designing then at the middle school helping inform student readiness to even want to take advantage of an opportunity like this, right? That they say, oh, I like that. That works for me. I like that type of experience. And I think that's where you get the impact point to everybody then. Other people may say that's not an opportunity they want to pursue, and that's fine. We know we won't be able to serve all, 4,500 high school kids at the Center for Innovation, but have we exposed them to that type of learning to get these skills that we've identified are critical in the portrait of graduates? So that's how I think it starts to work together in that fashion. But yeah, we got a few things going on next year. We're talking more preschool, we're talking middle schools, talking Center for Innovation. So it's a busy group over here.
Very busy, because excellence will be our leading name. Thank you, Superintendent Degner. Next up is our director liaison reports. I don't know if any directors want to highlight anything that they took part in the last month. If so, please feel free to do so. Director Pilcher-Hyatt.
So the Latinos para la Educación, which is Latinos for Education, have been working on the event that we're having at Hills Elementary. It is on, Carmen, is it on the 22nd? Friday, September 22nd. We are hoping that members of the team and members of the board can attend. I'll send you the invitation. I have it in English. Carmen did a beautiful invitation. She made it one in Spanish and one in English. And it's getting promoted by the Longfellow and Hills principals. The Hills principal, Reagan Bissett, has done a ton of work with us and really connected with her community, with her Hills Elementary community. It's been a beautiful process. As everyone knows, the first time for anything can be kind of stressful. So it is a nerve-wracking thing for this community to do and for the group to do. So they volunteered to represent several different Latin countries. They'll have a table for each of their countries. Different families will be volunteering to create food representing their countries, and other things like art and music will be on display. Again, we just hope people will come. And I'd also say thank you to the to the Longfellow principal, Kelly, whose last name escapes me right now. Webb, of course, sorry. So she's also been very great about, working with us. So it's been a wonderful experience. And again, thanks to Carmen, who's been attending our meetings and helping us fill in a lot of holes that we have as we're trying to create this event, and to Reagan Bissett, who's done the same. So I will send you the invitation.
Great, thank you.
I just wanted to highlight a couple of the back-to-school events I attended. The Neighborhood Centers for Johnson County back-to-school event, and the Big Brothers Big Sisters back-to-school event, and just a shout-out to our equity team who were very well represented at both of those events. And I know any time that they are asked to be somewhere, that they are there, and it's always good to see them. So
Great.
shout out to them.
I'll just real quick, this was more as a parent, but the back to school night at Northwest, one, well organized, so Principal Fitton and her staff was great, but really it's the energy of those teachers. Like, I know what it's like and how I feel at 6 o'clock at night after a day of teaching. They are pumped, they are ready, they are cramming everything they want to tell us in this tiny little time and running us around the school. It was just so well done, so efficient, really appreciated. And again, I'm proud to be on the board, and I'm super excited to be an Iowa City School District parent.
Great, thank you. Next up is agenda setting. We have an education committee meeting on the 19th of this month, and it looks like the topic is the math program. And we're gonna be at Garner. I lost my place.
4 o'clock start at Garner.
Yes, 4 o'clock start at Garner. And then we have our P&G meeting on the 26th. That starts at 5 o'clock, back of the boardroom. And it's the 200 series, followed by our regularly scheduled board meeting. We will have our education showcase, as well as the equity update, Ombuds annual report, and a couple of action items because we'll need to select a delegate for the IASB. So, and I think Superintendent Degner, wait, did you have any parking lot items?
Did you have middle school update on there? We had
No,
bumped that
that's
one
it.
from
It
this
was the
week,
middle
so
school
I
update.
think I heard you say equity update, ed showcase, ombuds. But yeah, middle school update will be the other one we have.
Great. Sounds like we're gonna have a great full meeting that night. Director Eastham?
I heard two things during the student presentation and the public comments. One, students raised the issue of students having their preferred names included in the yearbooks. I certainly would like to address that. I'm not quite sure how to put it in, where to put it in to our meeting schedule, but
I don't know if the first place should be a meeting schedule. Perhaps, I don't know if the team can check into exactly what their process was and what are some options and then report back.
Yeah, I made notes around period products, that supplies are empty, and the dead name for some of our students and trying to get that corrected. Of course, we know that whatever name is in Infinite Campus is what we have to use, but we can give them information about how their parents can change that if they're so comfortable to make sure that it's represented in the yearbook. So we can take action on both of those items for sure.
and can we be sure to include the students who appeared tonight and raise those concerns?
Yeah, follow up.
Okay.
I'm sure the team can follow up with those schools and those school representatives.
Okay, great.
Sounds like we already are following up on the first one.
Okay.
Oh, great.
Yep.
Get our
Okay, thanks,
team.
Larry.
We're on it.
Right, and thanks for mentioning the products issue too. Well, that was
Yep.
the other point I had.
And were there any other questions or comments or things that people wanted added to the parking lot? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.